Welcome to another episode of Out on a Limb podcast, where today we have a neat... What the fuck do we have?
Who's ready? Who's ready?
Hey, I can't be perfect all the time. Okay, start the watch over again.
Why do you have that button?
I don't know. Do you not like it?
No, it makes you look like
Homie.
Like a grandma?
yeah, like you're literally NPR.
Well, then you got to
So I was going to stop and tell you that.
Okay, good. Well, I stopped before you.
talk really wispy and soft when you talk.
It's just that, we've got to talk about animals
It's really quiet when you talk if you're on NPR.
because you don't want to upset
right.
people. And
That's
actually,
my trans
I
voice.
realize that I'm talking too quickly
Yes,
Be-
you have to slow down and moderate.
for like a third grade
That's right.
mentality.
Okay, are we ready?
We're going to try to be ready.
I'm definitely too loud for NPR.
Yes, you are. Okay, here we go.
Hey, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Out on a Limb podcast, where we have some fascinating pet sessions for you.
Cool.
We've dug deep in our archives, recent archives,
I wouldn't say too deep,
'Cause I
but
think
we've dug deep enough.
because I think we've done some pet stuff before in another episode, but
Yes.
these are new stories that you haven't heard before,
And everybody loves pets.
That's
right?
That's right.
Some cool stuff
Mhm.
that I always think that I've heard it all, and I'm always surprised.
Mm-hmm.
When you think you've heard it all,
Well,
you haven't. You haven't. All right, let's start with this one. We had a woman who contacted us about her schnauzer.
I just love that word. Schnauzer.
right?
It's a
Schnauzer.
schnauzer.
I like strudel.
And I don't even remember this thing that I'm going to tell you about was kind of an aside,
Mhm.
and she almost didn't write it in the email. So I don't remember what the original reason she booked a session. There was something we had to work with. But anyway, so she tells me as an aside,
Mhm.
this is a schnauzer. I do schnauzer rescues. I've had lots of schnauzers. I know what a schnauzer is, what it looks like. And yet I've had 2 DNA tests on this dog, and it comes up Chihuahua. Each time it came up Chihuahua.
Mhm.
Okay.
2.
It's not like once and it was a mistake. No, it was twice.
Right.
Yeah.
So she just writes this as an aside in the email after all of her questions, right? She goes, by the way, I've had 2 DNA tests on this dog, and it comes up Chihuahua, which is interesting.
Okay.
Those are 2 totally different.
dogs.
Correct.
And the initial assumption would be, well, sure. I mean, if you look at the dog, it's going to look like a little bit of a Chihuahua. No,
Not a schnauzer.
this dog look 100% Schnauzer.
Yeah.
Yeah. So stop right now and go look up a schnauzer if
That's
you
right.
don't remember what a schnauzer looks like.
Or if Will gets the impetus to put up a picture.
That's
Let me
right.
Write that on my list.
I might do that.
Flash.
Picture of schnauzer.
I probably
Anyway.
will. And I might even pull the one from the client. So
Oh, no. Well, we better ask
we
permission.
can ask.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, that'd be cool.
Anywho, all right. So you know how my mind works. Well, maybe y'all don't, but you guys know. And that is there's a there there. There's a there there with this DNA
That's
thing.
a cord to pull on.
Right. Now we know that our DNA, our DNA is energetic. That's why we have 12 strands of DNA, 2 strands in the physical body, which align to your galactics. But at any rate, that's another story for another day. But
Okay.
Maybe-
A couple of people just went, what are you
Right.
talking about?
you
Yeah.
can watch that. We have lots of episodes about that on the galactics. But your DNA is energetic and physical, right? So this is what I understand. So we get into the session. The schnauzer takes me a couple of lives back to a life. I think maybe that was what we had to heal. There was some anxiety and something that we had to heal. So we go 2 lives back, 2 or 3. And the dog was, I think, on a tight leash, didn't have a lot of room to move around. It was kind of a really sad story.
Mhm.
And I think the dog was also afraid of yard instruments. Didn't want to be leashed. That was one thing I remember now as I'm telling the story. And
Mhm.
didn't
That's right.
like yard instruments like tall rakes or tall things like that.
grass. Didn't like grass under its feet either.
That was a different one. I
Was
think.
that? Oh, okay.
So anyway, apparently this
Wow.
Chihuahua, or what we didn't know it was a Chihuahua. Apparently this dog in that life, a couple of lives back, had been disciplined, I guess, with a broom or some kind of large instrument or whatever. That's why I didn't like it. The animal didn't give me the details because those are difficult. Those are painful for me to hear. It's painful for us to walk through, but sometimes it's necessary to clear that.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And was on a short leash. So didn't like to be leashed now in this life. But anyway, he couldn't tell me exactly what kind of dog he was, but he was a very, very small dog. And I'm thinking in my mind, Chihuahuas are really, really small dogs, right? So we did all of the clearings and things that we needed to, and we got done with the session, and the DNA thing wasn't clear to me, but I really sensed intuitively that that was a Chihuahua, and that's probably why the DNA test was showing Chihuahua, because that was the life we needed to clear. So energetically, that life was still really entwined with the Schnauzer's life now. Because that was the life that needed to be cleared. So it's present energetically, right?
What's your butt?
Well, no, I mean, I'm remembering it.
Okay.
Wasn't it though that the Chihuahua life did come up and that it was living?
No. That's the next session we're going to get into.
See, they all blend together.
All blend. Anyway,
I'll just sit back and listen.
So the client really just wanted to clear this. And in my mind, I'm thinking, I wonder if that is why this DNA test is showing Chihuahua. So, of course, what do we do when we have questions and we're not clear? And I told the client, I said, I'm going to channel on this. I want to do a channel and ask the collective or Ezekiel.
Now I remember. Yes. Now I remember.
Ezekiel works with the pets too. So you can call on Ezekiel, Archangel. But so the collective tells me, yes, that was a Chihuahua in that life. And that it was time to clear that life. They had contracted with us to meet. The Schnauzer wanted to be with that mom, knowing that the mom would reach out to us and clear that life for the Schnauzer.
Yep.
And they said, that's why the DNA test, which is energetic.
Clear life for the Schnauzer or for the...
for the Schnauzer, so the Schnauzer wouldn't be afraid.
Oh, okay.
But also clearing the Chihuahua energy from that life, right?
So confusing.
It's really deep. It's amazing. And you never know what you're going to get when you start digging in.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, so I said, okay, if that's why the DNA test was showing Chihuahua, now that we've cleared that Chihuahua energy from the Schnauzer, if she were to have another DNA test, would it show Schnauzer? And they said, possibly, maybe not, but possibly it could actually alter that. And I told her that, and she was fascinated. That the client was fascinated.
But she hasn't done it?
I don't know if she did. She
That's
didn't follow up.
Expensive test. I mean, that's not like, it's like $400 or $500.
Yeah, really?
Well, I mean,
it's a DNA test
for humans and for animals.
Yeah, like I think, like when I did
Ancestry and all of that was like $99.
Well, that's if there's a deal. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that's normally it's like a $300 thing, and then you get them, you can find them on sale or whatever. But yeah, it's.
I remember thinking, that'd be cool to do, and then realizing, oh, good God, this is not, a lark. It's expensive.
Yeah.
Actually, I think I remember too when we talked to the Schnauzer. I don't remember if this came from the Schnauzer or the collective, but the Schnauzer wanted to give that Chihuahua the life that it didn't have. And
that's what I was remembering.
Is that what you remember?
That's what I was remembering. Yeah.
That's right. So the Chihuahua wanted to live vicariously through, and it had done that in those lives leading up to the Schnauzer. So that the Schnauzer, and then they agreed that it was time to cut the cord there.
Yeah.
That's okay. So taking that into an area that I understand, not the pet stuff, but that thing about living vicariously or living through, that connection. I remember doing a reading for my little sister, and because she has this drive to do public service, like overwhelmingly, even though what in her mind she really wants was to have a goat farm.
Yeah.
She wanted to have a goat farm, live, like her mom has some places up in the mountains. She just wanted to be in those places with a goat farm and living a totally different life than being in Washington, D.C. And, and doing all of this. And it was really interesting because when I did a session for her, there was this life before, and I don't remember all the details, but where she had been she had looked to Mother Teresa as an idol, an icon, and was wanting to follow in those footsteps.
Yeah.
And something about her parents wouldn't let her, and it's all she wanted to do was serve. And so there was still that
urge.
Yeah, that urge to do it in this lifetime. And so I said, you're having to kind of blend the two, because I kept saying, it's okay. You don't have to This is really important. You don't have to go out and live the big life. You don't have to
Right.
solve the world's problems. You know, your whole, when I finally understood our whole purpose of being here is to experience
Mhm.
whatever it was we decided we wanted to experience. That's it. We don't owe anything else. We don't, you know,
Right.
Yeah.
as long as you're living a life, hopefully with integrity, great. But it just, I just found that so fascinating that bleed over was coming through. So to hear that, of course, why wouldn't it happen with animals too?
It's just
Like-
it's just unbelievably fascinating that the DNA would reflect that.
Well,
I mean,
that's just
As
Yeah.
practitioners, we
Yeah.
understand the DNA is energetic, but to physically see it,
Yeah.
the
well, and
energetic,
that's why you were given that for them to make the case in point, because
Yeah.
you wouldn't understand that with human. Like,
Right.
how would the human DNA show, unless it was like DNA was taken 1 year and then a couple of years later it was taken again and it showed it differently. But I guess it has been,
I mean,
they have done that and they have shown.
yeah, it was just interesting that when, prior to that session, I'm just given a picture of the dog and the name of the dog and the age and all that stuff. So that's all I see. I don't know anything else. But the one thing is that Allison did say was, you're never going to believe this, but they did do a DNA test on this dog, and the DNA test comes back as Chihuahua. And I'm like, there's no effing way.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at this, it looks like a purebred.
I think it probably was a purebred.
Yeah,
She-
schnauzer.
yeah,
and it
she
just,
knew about-
all the features were exactly the way they should be. And it's
Sure.
schnauzerish. And it just,
Schnauzerish.
and it just, you just look at it and there's no
That's cool.
way.
There's no, you can tell the difference between a Chihuahua and a Schnauzer. I mean, it's not like,
There's no blend.
No.
No.
not like two animals, like a lab and a
So
golden
freaking
retriever that are
Yeah.
similar.
Right.
Yeah.
But what you were talking about with living vicariously or assisting
Mm-hmm.
others in that way, animals really do that a lot. Here's another story that'll explain that. So this was really weird. If I recall correctly, this dog
Mm-hmm.
had as one of the issues that there was something on the skin. The mom didn't know if it was a rash on the skin or something, but the dog just kept itching, couldn't lay on that side, would move around, was just like focused on this, but the spot would move to different areas of the body. It wasn't just one spot where there was a rash that you could see. This
Mhm.
itchy, this kind of obsession with this spot on the body would move around. Come to find out that in a past life, I don't remember how many back, in a past life, these animals, this dog was a litter mate, had a litter mate. You know, when dogs have
Mhm.
lots of 6 or 8 or whatever, there were 2 that were really close, this one and a sibling litter mate. Well, the litter mate died. And this dog made an agreement in that life that it would let that energy continue to live within this dog. And where did it live? That energy lived underneath the skin, but its energy, it could move around. So it was moving around and it was irritating the dog. And he didn't even realize it until we went through this. And he's like, he's explaining what this energy is as we started investigating.
Okay.
So he wanted that energy to be so close to him because, I said to him, well,
This is the dog she's talking about.
Yeah.
I'm talking to the dog. And if there's a deceased energy, like we have a deceased relative, they can come and visit and hang with you and be in your living room or whatever.
Yeah.
I said, you didn't want the dog to interact with you in that way? And he said, no, it was closer if it could be within me.
Mhm.
It would be closer if it could live its life vicariously
Interesting.
through me or within me. So that dog allowed the energy of his sibling, his litter mate, to live within his body. And that's where it was living. And it would move around. So this dog now realized that it was time to sever that energetic connection. So we basically talked to the energy and said, this was a beautiful contract.
Mhm.
You were brothers, you loved each other, but now it's time for you to move on. And then you can
Mhm.
come in and have your own life again. Right?
Mhm.
I mean, you can't make this stuff up.
So was the energy of the one that was not embodied, was it different than, could you tell a difference?
I can't tell the difference. I don't feel a difference per se,
Mhm.
but I
Well,
released
like
it.
Will's voice wasn't any different, or like you
Were
guys,
did
I don't
you end up
remember.
Did you end up talking to the other dog or the other energy?
No, I think the dog, I
okay.
think this dog was the intermediary. I would say talk
Okay.
to the energy.
Yeah.
You talk to the energy, and he would talk to the
Okay.
energy.
Yeah.
So he was like, just like we as humans, like we are this animal as a human and we go through experiences, but when we connect to our soul, our spiritual side of ourselves, we have an awareness and then we can
Yes.
correct things. And it was the same thing with the
Yes.
dog
Yeah.
where
That's what happens when
You
you
just-
do when we do pet sessions. It's very much like talking to their higher self.
uh-huh.
So then they're aware of their past lives and all these things that they had, because they'll look back at their past lives and like, I didn't know I could see that. So they're not really aware on the conscious level at all. that
Yeah.
This issue is from a past life or anything.
Yeah, that's cool.
And,
okay.
and as I'm sitting here, it's fascinating because again, I don't remember any of this stuff. And so, and we don't talk in depth about a lot of these sessions. So it is quite intriguing.
You're really
listening.
missing out.
I must be. I don't.
You just trust that everything.
I do.
Okay.
I do.
So wait,
client's happy.
let's formulate, like, just for somebody who this is the first time seeing this, just happened to come across this YouTube video or listen to the podcast. So Will channels the animals. He steps back, the animals,
Right.
their personalities are coming through him.
Yeah.
And Allison is asking the questions. So when Will comes back, he's not aware of what the conversation was about. He just sees either people with tears in their eyes or gobsmacked or
Right,
whatever,
Yeah.
and he's
Yeah.
just like, what happened? Is
Exactly.
everything okay?
Exactly. Exactly.
Sometimes I realize people don't understand the setup.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
there are times that I do come out of the sessions and I'm emotionally,
Mhm.
I'm so connected to that animal or the
Very
energy,
often with
right,
animals.
that I come out of it and I on my kind of that first breath, I just go into a sob or a weeping
Mhm.
because of the conscious connection I've had with that animal from a soul level. And so that remains
much
just
love.
there's
Yeah.
so much love. So that remains just at that moment that I come back into my reality space,
Mhm.
that it's hard to disconnect from that immediately. And I just get this overwhelming sense of love, overwhelming sense of compassion. It's just
Well,
beautiful.
it's very frequent that when we're talking about a sad situation in a past life or something like that, you'll have tears in your eyes or a tear streaming down
Yeah.
your face.
Yeah. And I have no idea.
But when pet sessions, like when I connect, I connected to, I always have at least one pet come in when I do like a group channeling session. And dogs are always first and foremost, 'cause
Yeah.
they're always hanging around.
Yeah.
And they have, like, cats, they're kind of, but dogs, they literally,
Yeah.
the energy is so unconditional
Mhm.
that you are so taken away. I'm always
Yeah.
in tears when they come through.
Yeah.
It's just overwhelming.
Yep.
I would say, the dog energy is more like all animals are here to teach us for sure,
Mhm.
but the dogs are more of the companion love
Mhm.
aspect like that, whereas cats, I think, are more of a teacher. That's why
Yeah.
they sometimes seem aloof,
Mhm.
or we make fun of them because they could care less or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Okay.
what's
That was
interesting
cool.
about that session though, what it's comparable to is when we have higher self channelings and the client thinks that they might have an energy or an attachment,
Oh, right.
Mhm.
Right.
entity attachment or whatever. Those are usually negatively connotated.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
So is that even a word?
Associated.
There's negative
It will be
connotation.
now.
What I'm
We'll
gonna say.
put that
Yeah.
into the dictionary.
Yeah.
It's a word now.
Yeah.
And so we get rid of them. Well, this is basically what that was. It was
Yeah.
an energy that was attached to him physically,
Yeah. A contracted energy that
and it was disturbing him at this point. And
It was
we had to
time
get
for
rid
it
of
to
it.
go, yeah.
Yeah.
But we talked
Which makes
to it because
sense.
it wasn't a negative,
Yeah.
Right.
like we would associate with a negative entity or, that kind of thing. But that's
Mhm. essentially
essentially what we did. Yeah. All right. So this is a fun one because you've had this experience too.
So funny you forget that's well, because we went into 4 cats' lives, but
Oh,
we channeled all 4 cats.
and that was a while ago.
Yeah.
That was quite a while ago. And
Yeah.
I did not remember this.
Year and a half.
But anyway, okay.
Okay.
So this client contacts us about, and I think it was a dog. Yeah.
Ah.
And he had something going on with his stomach. He was vomiting, whatever. He had some kind of digestive.
Yeah. A lot of digestive.
So she
issues.
goes, this is my last resort. I'm having a session because other than that, I'm going to have to go and pay for x-rays or ultrasounds or something, and it's going to be very expensive. So I want to have a session first. Well, a lot of times when animals first pop in, they're looking around
They're
and
blown away.
and I'm just sitting there smiling, waiting for them to introduce themselves to me. And they're looking around and I'll say, hello. Well, anyway, and then after that point, they're looking and they're going, I see so many sparkles in here. There's sparklies. There's energy everywhere. They usually a lot of them recognize the energy in the treehouse because animals, as I've written about in Love Notes, there's a whole chapter on that energy. They can see energy. So
White
they can
cats stare up at the corner.
Yeah. Whether that comes in orbs or whether they see deceased ancestors or other pets that have passed. But a lot of times it's just energy. We call them sprites or just energy, energies that roll in and roll out and roll around. Well, anyway, that's what happened here. So as I'm trying to investigate what's going on with the stomach, and he mentioned the energies in here. So I started talking to him about the energies in here and orbs. And do you see them a lot? And, oh yeah, they're in my house and I see them a lot and they roll around at my level. They're, right where my face is. And one time he literally goes, one time there was one right in my face. And I went, for those of you watching, listening, not watching, he ate it. He just eats it. He eats the orb and swallows it. So I'm like, oh, there's your digestive problem. So we talked about it and I'm like, how do you feel? Well, it doesn't bother me too much, but sometimes I can feel it moving around in there and it prevents me from being able to eat as much as I want and that kind of stuff. And I said, well, are you ready to get rid of the orb? I mean, would you like to let's have an experiment? Because everything is an experiment. I don't know how. It's not like there's a class that teaches you how to do all of these. You have to think on your feet, whatever comes up. So I'm like, would you like to experiment with me? Oh, sure. I said, okay, well, I'm going to talk to this. And I think I talked to the orb. I might have even talked to the orb at that point and said, how do you feel, about being in there? I think I'd rather be out because I feel kind of, confined and stuff.
Oh my God.
So I said, okay, well, we're going to ask you. And I talked to the orb and walked it out, up the digestive system and out. And Will's mouth actually went, and you could see, I couldn't see the energy, but you could tell that something was happening and coming out. And then the dog.
Imagination. It's all like, but okay. So think about it because orbs are a collection of energy. It's so, if you ingest that energy, like the energy is still staying together and even if you think in terms of, because people are like, well, I don't know about an orb, but any food you eat, that's just energy.
It's a ball of energy.
Everything is energy.
Yeah.
And so your body doesn't know what to do when you stick an energetic orb down it.
Exactly.
But it doesn't necessarily create like a cancer or something. It's just that it's energy.
It is. Yeah. It's taking up room.
Yeah.
It's a thing that you can see.
Yeah.
It's taking up room. We saved her an ultrasound
Yeah.
Oh my God.
fee or whatever.
Well, so when I came in, I had an issue where I had a male dominant cat, alpha male cat, who was the youngest, who had taken over the household and was upsetting one of the other cats. And so there was a spraying match going on. Never had a problem with spraying before. And then all of a sudden, it's like our house is just getting so disgusting. And then I had these.
That means they weren't fixed, right?
No, they were fixed.
And they still can spray? I
Oh,
don't
yeah.
even know. Because
Yeah.
we have 2 males and they've never done that I'm aware of.
That's what I'm saying. Like normally they don't, but no, they can still spray.
Oh, interesting.
It's gross.
But ours are fixed. So
Yeah.
they wouldn't have. Oh, you
No,
said they still could spray.
Yeah, they can still spray. It's just
So
that they don't, they haven't gotten their hackles up where they felt the need to do that.
Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha.
Whereas mine
Interesting.
did.
Yeah.
So then that's why you want to get them fixed as young as possible, so that they don't ever learn what it's like to spray.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
so then so they were younger, and then go up 7 years, and I've got these 2 little old lady kitties is what I called them. So one was like I guess 14 at the time, the other one's 16. Anyway, so I got a chance to, like, we were there to solve the spraying problem, but it's like, let's go ahead and talk to the 2 older lady kitties and see what they think. And it was funny because they were all talking about the one cat that instigated the spraying, Izzo. And they were just like, this is so funny because they were just like, each one of them.
To clarify, by the way, you came and did a session and we did a session for all 4 of your cats.
Yeah, all
Okay,
4
yeah,
of them. And so it's funny because all of them individually, because you do a session with one, then the next, then the next, and they're all like, yeah, Izzy's kind of weird. He just stares off into space. And it's like, you try and, hang around him and he's just off. And each of the cats had their own perception. Yeah. But they all talked about him being weird. And then you talk to him and he's just like, kind of like, dude, like he was weird. But anyway, so when we talked to my daughter's cat, Isis, it was so cute because she's just like, yeah, I see these orbs all the time. And I like to chase them and play with them, but sometimes they get stuck in me. Like she said something about, sometimes they get something about them being in her, like, and that she gets them down.
Interesting.
And I'm kind of going, what? She goes, yeah. And I'm having like that problem or something. There was something going on right then. And she was fine when I left the house earlier that day. And I'm usually up here for like the day and then I go home. So, I'm carrying this information with me. I go home and sure enough, she's acting funky. And I'm sitting there going, okay, come on, Isis. And she's like, you could tell there was something bothering her. She wasn't really hungry. She was being strange. Yeah. And then the next day she went back to herself, but it was just, but how she described them, that she loves to like capture them. Like it was this whole thing.
I got to go back and listen to that.
Yeah.
That's
The
funny.
orbs were definitely like an experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think it's orbs, but our Oliver, the little orange,
Oh, he's so cute.
I don't know what his deal is. Every time I ask him in a session why he throws up immediately after eating all the time, and he's very thin, he tells me, oh, I just eat too fast, or, but I'm getting enough nourishment, and he seems to have high energy levels. He's okay.
Yeah. It's not
But there's something, I
malnutrition.
feel like there's something still going on. So I want to malnourished.
Malnourished.
I'll give you an idea afterwards.
Is it
Remind me
the
to
puzzle?
the mice.
Tell me now. Go ahead.
Oh, okay.
We'll
So there are
filter-
these blue mice.
there
that
might be
you can-
people out there with the same problem.
So there are these blue mice you can buy. And I can't remember, just do a search for blue mouse cat food or cat container.
Oh,
Yeah,
cat
it's like
container.
but it's almost like a little boat that's hollowed out with a little plastic thing going across. So they can, it's like they can play with it like it was prey, and they bat it and a little bit of food will come out.
Oh,
So, and there's those balls that you can get that do the
Right.
same
Yeah,
thing.
it slows the eating down.
It slows the eating down. And I specifically got those because of my oldest little old lady
Yep.
cat, because she would scarf food down and then throw up.
Mhm.
And so then all of a sudden I have to get like several dozens of these. And I've,
They're all over the house.
when it's feeding time, like I throw a mouse here, a mouse there, and people
How
walk in
funny.
and see these blue mice, but it solved the problem,
Wow.
for like, we had to keep adjusting the eating schedule according to the little old lady cat. And we also needed to feed her, like 4 to 6 times a day,
Oh, well.
which meant
Right.
all the cats. got
Yeah.
fed
Right.
4 to 6
Yeah.
times a day. It's like, it was nuts, but it solved the scarfing down problem.
so it is a legit issue.
It's a legit.
What is with
He's
cats?
being serious with it. Well, it's
Why?
some of them are just like, well, you eat fast, don't you? Yeah. Some people,
But he
just-
doesn't throw up.
I probably could if I needed to.
but it's just that, like,
Well, you
gut
gorge on it. Yeah, you
reflex.
gorge on it, and then all of a sudden it builds up pressure, and you're like, you just don't.
Yeah. And cats they don't sit around with their stomachs hurting. They do not like that.
Mhm.
It'll come right back.
Evidently.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you got to do some intervention stuff there.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah.
And it is difficult when you have more than one.
Yeah, and we don't
Oh, yeah.
we don't have a. Sounds like we're like having a veterinary discussion here, but ours aren't on a feeding schedule. They have food 24/7 sitting in a
Dry
you know,
food.
And
dry-
that's why yeah.
yeah. So, but I mean,
When he chooses
well, it's
to eat,
it's either the dry food, but like we feed our other cat
Who's old.
older, we
Mhm.
give him wet food. So we give him both wet food in the morning.
Really not a lot.
No, not a lot.
You
but
wouldn't think it'd be
but
enough to trigger them to throw
he'll
up.
go over there and just slam it down. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't
It's-
notice that
it's-
he's slamming it down.
It's really hard because
Yeah.
they will. Yeah.
they're sensitive.
Yeah, they're so sensitive.
They're sensitive.
Cats.
Mhm.
Love them.
Okay. So
Can't live with them and can't live without them.
I have another cat story from that session, unless you want to talk about
Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay.
While we're on the
save
cats.
Save him.
Because then we're
for
going to
last,
move
'cause
to
he's
squirrels.
really cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
So in that same session when we were talking to Echo. Echo is the 17-year-old, or she was 16 at the time. And we called her the shitty kitty. Howly growly, hissy pissy, bitey flighty, something shitty kitty. Like I was going to write
Aw.
a book, a children's book on her.
Oh yeah. That's the kind of book I'd want my
Yeah.
kids to
Well,
read.
that, go the F to sleep,
Right.
you know?
Right,
It was
exactly.
along
Children's
that
book
line.
for adults.
Yes.
Exactly. Yeah.
So so we called her the shitty kitty. And she, Siamese, she was like, I guess, a mix between tabby and Siamese. So she looked like she was a snowshoe Siamese. Very, very cute, but very Siamese with the cross eyes, the the weird meow, and the disposition of just everything that's difficult. Hyperesthesia, which means they get super sensitive to
Oh, wow.
everything.
Wow.
And so they'll get rollies, and like their skin starts to roll, and they get uncomfortable and hypersensitive and run around the house. And
Wow.
very any cat that has any Siamese in them, it's trouble. Like it's fun, but it's trouble. So I had declawed her, which that was the last cat I ever declawed.
Yeah.
And I really wish I hadn't, because it messed with her. Like it really changed her personality and left her feeling defenseless and stuff. So she liked to kind of like bite at you like a snake. It wasn't really trying to bear down. It was just kind of a snake bite where she'd dip and come back. But anyway, so she was always, forever, you'd go and pet her and she'd be like, meh, and like, she would, like most cats, accept love for a minute and then smack you and stuff. But there was there's just this next level shittiness to her, just where it was just agitation and all this stuff. And I thought, why does she even come around? She's the most miserable cat. And yet the thing I'm missing so much about this cat is that she would curl up next to me in my lap or in my arm if I'm laying down. And she would just take her paw and she would tenderly caress my face.
Aw.
And then and then I would pet her and I would stop, and then she would do that again. And I would pet, and we would do this for like 10 or 15 minutes. And then, she'd whack me. But she was the most disagreeable cat, hissing and everything. So when we did this session, that was one of the questions that I had you ask.
Are you a shitty kitty?
Yeah. Why are you such, why are you so miserable?
Right.
What can I do to make you happy? And the question came across as astonishing to her. She's like, what else do I need? I have people who love me. I have food. I have, friends. I have, like she was totally happy in her environment. And she's like, I'm not lacking anything. And I'm like, bitch, and it was weird because you did kind of ask it a couple of different ways. And I realized, like, once you do these pet sessions, you can't ever see your animal the same.
Right.
It shifts your whole relationship. And so, which is why I understand the whole vegan thing, like totally, like, how you would just like, you can't, once you understand their psyche, it innately something changes. And so I remember going back home and just I was looking at all of them like, what the hell? Like, did they know we just had a conversation?
Yeah.
Right. And she comes up and she curls up in my lap and does her thing. And I'm just like, I love you. Like, the love that was outpouring from me, the connection we had after that.
Yes.
Even when she turned around, bitch slapped me.
Right.
It was still okay.
Yes. Right.
Because that was her hypersensitivity. I got it. But at least I knew that she was actually feeling loved and accepting that love.
That's right.
And
yeah.
That's the biggest, I think that's the biggest takeaway from any of the pet sessions as an owner. And speaking from, our session with our cats, you come away with such heartfelt connection. You can say compassion, you can say all that
tenderness,
but it is this one-on-one knowing and confirmation of the connection you have with them. And that then shifts your frequency, your field, so that when you are around your animal, your pet, it changes the whole dynamic. And that's what we've seen with ours. I mean, immediately. I mean, we're not but, 100 feet, not even that, from where we're doing this, where we do all of our work, to the house. when we channeled that particular cat that had the behavioral
First
issues
time.
the first
Mhm.
time that got this all started, got done with the session, walked 50 feet to the house, immediately the whole demeanor and the whole relationship between more you and him,
Mhm.
it just, it was visible. It was
Yeah.
physically visible. So
Yeah.
you knew you connected on such a level. You knew you were connecting at such a level. So yeah,
Yeah.
very profound.
All right. So the last session I wanted to talk about was an update on Mac the Squirrel. So for those of you who have a copy of Love Notes from the Animal Kingdom, the white one down there, Mac has his own chapter. Mac is a squirrel that my friend Erica had as a pet.
Yep.
It had,
Rescued.
I think it had, she had rescued it when it was a baby. Maybe it fell out of the net. Who knows? It might be in the story. I don't remember. But she tried to rehab it and put it out in the wild because she understands that wild animals need to be out in the wild. And that's really the ideal scenario.
Mhm.
And so she released it and it got beaten up and it came back and she couldn't release it
I'm
again.
beating up squirrel. I'm sorry.
He was rough. He had like his ear bit and
Yeah.
all kinds of stuff.
It's not accepted.
Right.
No. So she ended up keeping him for several years. And it was recently that he escaped somehow. He had a whole screened in porch. So I don't know what happened, but anyway, he somehow escaped
Mhm.
after living with them. And I mean, he had free reign of the house.
Mhm.
And one of the things that she really wanted to know when we had our pet session with him talking to Mac was how is it when humans have wild animals as pets? What happens there? Are they okay with that? Do they feel confined? Do they really want to be in the wild? Is it not a good scenario? Should we not ever do that? Because people keep possums or raccoons or different animals that really technically should be wild, but for whatever reason it's hurt or whatever. So Mac at that time said, just like we would expect, they signed a contract, Mac and Erica, to have the squirrel come and live in that way.
Yeah.
And Mac said, I've had lives out because I asked, when you sit on the screen and you're watching the other squirrels out there and stuff, are you like longing to be
Yeah.
out there? He said, no, I've had lives like that. My bond here is with Erica. This is what we came to do, to have this loving
Yep.
human animal bond. And what I've heard
It's much
from,
cushier, too.
what's that?
It's
Oh,
much
yeah, for
cushier,
sure.
too.
His lifespan's going to be a lot longer.
Yeah.
But also what I've heard from animal collectives after that is that when you do that, when you have a special bond with a wild animal, it kind of reverberates, it generalizes out into the greater animal collective, and it changes the bond between humanity and animals in general,
Mhm.
just from that one-on-one that you're having, that experience that you're having with an animal generalizes
Wow.
to the whole human animal collective, which is fascinating. That's a big deal. Just goes to show you your energy is always reverberating out there.
Right.
If we could see it, I think it would just blow our minds. So anyway, I don't know, that animal lived with her for 4 or 5 years probably,
Yeah.
and had run of the house, would create little nests everywhere. We went and visited one time, and at that time, Mac was up in the master bedroom underneath the covers.
Yeah.
And we went up into the room to look and say hey to Mac. Mac wouldn't come out from under the covers.
Yeah.
Oh.
He didn't really care for strangers, I guess, and maybe, I don't know, he didn't recognize our energy. But anyway, so Erica wanted to know, she never did see a squirrel dead that she thought was Mac. So she really didn't know
He was
if
a
after he
common-
escaped.
Common gray squirrel.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
So she didn't know if after he had escaped, if he was still living or
Right.
had moved on, whatever. So she wanted to know if he had transitioned and how he was doing and everything, or if he had reincarnated. So we asked recently, a couple weeks ago. Turns out Mac did transition, but has not reincarnated because Mac is explaining to all of the other animals, the squirrels and the wildlife in Erica's backyard, kind of bridging the gap between Erica and the other animals, like
That
letting them know
he's
that it's
safe, that
okay.
He's okay. That,
That she's-
yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so Erica said, yes, I'm having squirrels that will come literally right up as if they know that I'm safe, they'll come right up to the screen and like look at me, like communicating with me, or coming and getting a nut out of her hand or
Oh my
something.
God.
Like I think she says she throws some food out there, and
Yeah.
some of the squirrels won't even eat that food. They come right up, they want a nut.
They want to take.
They
it
want
from her.
something.
Yeah, they want to
better.
get it from her than what she's just tossing out in the yard.
So he's
yeah.
being the go-between,
Yeah.
the bridge between the animals in her yard and Erica.
And she
Isn't
said
that
she's
cool?
been noticing a lot more birds are in the yard that are close. And
Right.
yeah, so he's drawing in all kinds of wildlife into the yard.
But that's specifically why he hasn't reincarnated,
Right.
because he has a mission on the other side.
That is so
Isn't
cool.
that neat?
Well, it's making me think about, okay, so when I had, like, I never have looked at this necessarily as my awakening, but I guess this was my awakening point, which was a 2-week period back in 2008, 2007, where I was living, I guess you would say it's the awakening period, because I was living a dual reality. Like I knew who I was on the other side, and colors were more vivid to me just in a day-to-day basis. And I was longing to go home, but I had kids. And anyway, so I was going through this experience. Well, when I was connecting with myself and who I was on the other side, it was really cool because I saw myself in this kind of paddock, like a pen area. And there was fencing, but again, it's only kind of what I was seeing in front of me. So I was creating what I was experiencing. And even though I was in this dirt and I could see the dirt wasn't a substance. So that was really interesting. It's not like I could lift up my hand and see dirt on me, but it was a paddock, like dirt. And I remember there was kind of a barn thing over here, whatever. And I asked myself what I was doing, and I realized I've always had an affinity for animals, and I was a spiritual animal behaviorist, in the sense that it's weird because, and I was trying to sort it out, and I know I still don't understand it quite as it's intended, but it was like I was playing around or trying to understand the evolution or the behavioral pattern of animals, so that when we're here in the human form, we are connecting in a different way with animals, And so when you're talking about him doing that, like I'm wondering, okay, is that like it resonates with me? There's some kind of, to describe it. It's not like I'm just sitting there going, okay, go for this treat, animal. And I don't know what animal I was working with. Yeah. But I knew that was what I was fascinated with studying over there.
That's cool.
So it has something to do with the relationship with people here with animals.
Yeah.
I don't know.
We definitely work with others energetically in other dimensions all the time, right? And so why not humans and animals? That makes sense.
Yeah.
But
very cool.
The whole story of Erica and Mac the Squirrel is in Love Notes from the Animal Kingdom there, if you wanted to order that and read it. The whole transcript is in there. That book is divided into, the first few sections are about topics that are commonplace in these sessions, like energy and pet siblings and transition and all of that. The middle section are actual transcripts of unique conversations. So I went ahead and put the word for word transcriptions. So you can read my question and Mac's answer. And those are fascinating about, how do you feel about being a wild animal living in a home? It's really beautiful story. I highly recommend reading that. But the other interesting thing that's going to be coming up soon is our friend Candace Kroll Goldman. She got a new horse. She is the founder of BQH, Beyond Quantum Healing, and she runs quantumhealers.com and has a YouTube channel called Quantum Healers if you're interested in watching some of her content. But she has a new horse named Hickory. And we've talked to the horse a couple of times, and we're going to actually do a series.
I didn't know you had talked to that. Yeah. When I saw her put the pictures up about the horse, I was just like, oh my God.
Beautiful horse.
So meant to be.
We talked to Hickory before
the auction.
Before the auction was finished.
Oh my God.
And Hickory couldn't confirm, though I think Hickory knew, but
wouldn't tell us exactly if Candace was who he was supposed to go with.
Right. But there was definitely a connection.
There was a connection.
Definitely a connection. And then we talked after, and now we're going to do,
Oh my God.
So you can pick.
Well, the moment I saw that horse and she said, I'm going to go see a man about a horse or something like that.
Yeah.
I knew the horse was coming home with her.
Yeah.
There was I don't know if I was reading her energy or whatever it was, but there was like this is happening.
Yeah.
It's
Right,
done.
right.
It just,
And so we
Yeah.
did a follow-up session after the
oh
auction.
my God.
And we'll be communicating with Hickory frequently and doing little series with the three of us and with Hickory.
Yep.
And then it'll morph into other animals, I think.
Yeah.
Animal communication in general. I don't know if we'll do we'll do other horses for sure. I don't know about other animals.
Right.
But it'll be on her Quantum Healers, but also we'll have a copy on our website as well,
Yep,
our YouTube.
Our YouTube. Yeah.
And
Awesome.
when I asked the collective about the horse energy that was coming into because we just did, for those of you who watch some of our interviews, we did an interview with Warwick Schiller called Journey On.
Mhm.
That's his podcast. And he is a well-known horse trainer.
Mhm.
And so he had a big YouTube channel at one point. I think now he's only on Spotify, but he has, I don't know, lots of thousands of viewers, where he started out doing horse training videos, but now he's
Mhm.
kind of ventured into the metaphysical stuff. So we talked
Oh,
to him.
very cool.
This is hilarious. Let me tell you this funny story. So we get on and it's only audio, but we can see each other. So it's audio and video to us, but on his Spotify, it's only audio.
Yep.
So I had these headphones on and I'm muffled because I can't hear myself. It's a long story, but I couldn't hear myself.
There was audio issues. Yeah.
But at any rate, he being a horse person, I figured we would talk at least about the Love
Yeah,
Notes book. Right.
Yeah.
So he had our websites. He knew all about it. He's going to ask whatever questions he's going to ask. And I'm thinking he'll at least ask something about animal communication because he's an animal person.
Right.
So I'm looking through Love Notes. I'm marking a few things that I want to read or talk about, especially about horses and stuff.
Yeah. Got them all flagged, ready to go.
So we're going through the interview and he's introducing and telling our whole background. And we're talking about our background and how all of this happened. And he talks about your first book, The Journey Within. And he goes, okay. And then you wrote this other book. And I'm like, okay, ready to talk about Love Notes. He goes, called The Origin Story. I'm like, wait a minute.
We went way off the reservation.
I had no idea he was going to jump there.
Yeah.
I figured maybe we might delve into that at the end, but he jumps right into there and we start talking about the galactic stuff. We didn't even touch on Love Notes. He goes, and afterwards he goes, well, I talk to all kinds of people about animals. I don't always talk to people about aliens.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, that was for him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what he said. He
Yeah.
said, really, he said, I'm so curious about so many things.
Come back
I
again.
want to learn
Right.
about all the different things.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
Right. So anyway, the point was that he's a horse guy. Then all this stuff with Candace, there was a lot of horse energy in our field
Mhm.
recently. So I asked the collective, why is there so much horse energy coming in? And they said, you're about to go on a little trajectory with your understanding of the horse collective and all of that energy.
Ah,
Yeah.
So their energy, horses are very powerful energy, very much teachers.
And wise. And, yeah.
Right. So this will be fun to see
This
where this
is
all
gonna be
leads. So
interesting.
be on the lookout for those.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, those videos and stuff. But we wanted to just give you an update of what's going on because this stuff is so fascinating.
Yep.
And
It's
there's
fun.
always new stories. So thank you for letting us share with you and for watching. Please hit the like button, the notification bell, share away if you like these videos and comment. We love your comments. You guys are so
Oh,
good.
yeah.
Yes.
You guys are so
The
good.
comments are getting better and better. I love them.
Yes, we feel like we know you all. We're having great
Exactly.
interactions. So thank you for that.
Exactly.
We appreciate that. And thanks again for spending your time with us on Out on a Limb podcast.
See you
Until next
guys.
time.
Bye.